The screen because I need new glasses.
Evening, everyone. What was that? What was that sound? What were you about to show off?
Oh, no, nothing. No, I just said I might scare the community by wearing my specs. But then it occurred to me that actually I'm in need of new specs, so I can't actually read the screen if I've got them on. So
Right. So they're not very helpful spectacles.
they're for distance viewing.
Okay. Well,
Thanks,
good
Nat.
evening, everyone. Welcome to the stream. How are you all tonight? How are you doing, Sam?
Me, I'm superb. Thank you.
Yeah. And how about you, Matt?
I'm doing very well, thank you very much.
Yeah. So tonight we're going to have a Q&A. We're going to try and answer some of the questions that have been posted on forums. We'll answer some of the questions posted in the chat. We're going to try and cover a lot, but we can't answer absolutely everything. We're not going to avoid any tough questions. We're just going to see what we can answer. So, first thing that I think we need to address, which I think it's going to come as no surprise, is the delay to today's update. And everybody was expecting an update today. We were expecting an update today. The community were expecting an update today. And it hasn't happened. Now, you were reasonable to expect your update today, because I know that the way we communicated it leading up to it made it sound like it was going to be coming out today. But it hasn't. And the reason is because we're going to be releasing everything at once on Thursday. And it means...
In sequence.
In sequence. Yeah. So we want everything to be in line. We want everything to go out on Thursday. And doing it this way just means there's less opportunity for things to go wrong. If we'd done it today, there was already a lot of confusion around the PlayStation stuff. And it's just a much easier way to get everything out at once. Is there anything...
It makes it more likely that things don't go wrong.
Yes.
Which is the wrong way around. Actually, let's put a positive spin on that. It makes it more likely that everything goes swimmingly.
Okay. Yeah.
Right, there we go. Because there are so many moving parts. The most complicated of which is that we're jumping between generations on console, and we've not done that before. So to be fair, a console jump only happens once every 6 years, 7 years, whatever it is, and this is the first time we've done it with Train Sim World. So there's a lot of moving pieces going on.
And
yeah, I think it's one of the most complicated of its type. I think on consoles with all the DLC across multiple platforms, it's it's difficult. So this gives us the best chance of getting it right.
Yeah. So the decision was only taken this morning because someone suddenly had a brainwave, because we were looking at the risks associated with launching today and then on Thursday as well. And someone said, well, hold on, why don't we stagger those releases on the same day, and then we can guarantee that they line up correctly.
And Bradley in the chat saying it's a pathetic excuse. We don't like disappointing you when it comes to this kind of thing. And if we felt like we could have released it today and it would have all gone according to plan, then we would have. But it wasn't on the cards today, was it?
The smarter move is to go everything on Thursday.
Yeah.
No, I mean, it would have been great to be able to go today because everyone would have been able to get the patch in place and then everything's good to go. But there was so much opportunity for things to be done in the wrong order, bizarrely, by going early, and it is partly because of the generation jump that we're doing, that the decision was taken to go on Thursday.
Yeah, I mean, the generation jump is not just with the consoles. Because of the whole 423, 426, recooking the DLC, anything goes out in the wrong order, you end up with a game that does not work.
Yeah.
So...
And I'm sure that people who are on Steam and are wondering, why didn't we get the update today if this is something that only affects consoles? The way it is going to be released on Thursday will impact everybody. This isn't just a console-specific thing. And it's going to be, it has the potential to be slightly different to the way you'd normally have your updates. So, yeah.
No, See You Later's just said, oh no, 2 more days. Now let's hear Matt talk about trains.
We can do that. Before we get onto the train talk, though, we should also cover the PlayStation migration and what that's going to entail. and also the update for Xbox as well, because currently there's an awful lot of confusion on the forums, in the chat. People, it's not very clear what it's going to be like to get from your current generation to the next generation. Now, I've been on the community, talking to the community all day. And I've been talking to the people in Dovetail, our retail team, our devs, to try and find the best step-by-step way to go from PlayStation 4 to PlayStation 5 and how that's going to work for you. So what I'm going to do is tomorrow we will put up a thread on the forums which will give you a step-by-step from getting from your current generation to your next generation. We don't want there to be any confusion, and obviously it's currently very confusing.
Yeah, to the extent that I suggest Natalie was going to read out the instructions.
Yes, he told me not to.
And I told you not to because the likelihood that it would be misinterpreted is incredibly high, because it's profile and save and update, and then transfer profile, save, update, transfer profile, save, transfer profile, update PlayStation 5. So we're going to put it down in we're going to put it
text by step
by step that we've tested and made sure it works.
Yes, I'm going to get everybody to give me the green light that it all works, that's the best way to do it, so that you all know how best to upgrade. And Sam, you actually mentioned profiles there, and that's something we really also need to talk about. It's quite important, isn't it? Because the PlayStation profiles are not going to transfer from PlayStation 4 to PlayStation 5. So I know this is something everybody's been asking about. We have been trying to work on it, and it's something that's still being worked on, but there is currently no clear path to get your profiles from PlayStation 4 to PlayStation 5. And we can't guarantee this is something that is ever going to work. So even though it is being worked on and it's being looked into, it's something we don't want to promise you. So unfortunately, those of you who are on the next generation consoles, you have a bit of a decision to make, because you can start fresh. You can start a new Rush Hour. You can start a new profile once you get the Rush Hour, and you can continue to build on from there. Or you can hold fire and hope that it will sort itself out. But we can't guarantee that it will. So, anything else you'd like to add to that, Sam? No?
No.
No?
No, you've done well.
Yeah, okay, great. And then there was a question from Stujoy on the forums regarding PlayStation, while we're on the topic of PlayStation. After the update, I'll have both PlayStation 4 and PlayStation 5 versions on their respective machines. How will purchasing DLC work for allowing DLC on both machines? So the way your ownership works with your DLC is it's your profile that owns it. It's your PSN that owns it. Your I can't remember, PlayStation Network or something. Anyway, it's your profile. It's not your machine that has the DLC. So if you're using a PlayStation 4 and you're logged into your profile, the PlayStation 4 will recognize that you own the DLC. If you're on a PlayStation 5, again, it will recognize your ownership through your account. So that's the big news that we needed to discuss. Now we can talk trains. Does that sound like a good idea to you, Matt?
Sounds good to me, yeah.
Yeah, we'll finish waffling on about all that.
It's not waffle, it's important.
It is important. And I hope that's helpful.
I mean, it's a big deal because people are, they're going to lose some of their progress and maybe trophy unlocks and stuff like that, or maybe they have to start their trophy pursuit again.
That
comes
is
down to
something
the individual whether they want to make the jump or not. But it's not boring. It's a necessary topic of conversation.
What if you buy Rush Hour on PlayStation 5 when that generation releases? Can we still play it on PlayStation 4? Yes, you can, but I don't know why you'd want to if you have a PlayStation 5.
Up to the individual.
Yeah.
They can choose for themselves.
You can choose for yourself. It's all to do with your account, not your machine. It's not like if you were buying PlayStation and then you wanted to play on Steam. You couldn't do that because that's a different platform entirely. But as far as your account is concerned, it's all PlayStation, so you can use whichever machine works for you, provided the game supports it. Right.
Midnight Racer, Xbox saves and profiles, etc. should be fine.
Yes, the Xbox is different. Unfortunately, they don't have the same kind of issues. So, yep. On to the questions. Now, we're going to start off with Boston questions, Matt. There's a couple of tricky ones, a couple of really nice ones. We'll start off with, are there any Easter eggs or unannounced features that will still appear? This is from Pinguini. Is there any
I can't think of it.
You can't ask that question.
I can't ask that question.
It ceases being an Easter egg if we tell you what it is and where it is. The whole point of an Easter egg is you're supposed to go off and find it.
Matt, were you about to tell everybody the answer to that? Were you about to give away all the Easter eggs?
Oh, sorry, Matt. I thought you were about to be nice to people, whereas
no.
Let's leave some mystery in the world.
Apparently, you looked outraged just then, Sam.
Well, rightly so. I mean, if you want us to just play it all for you and then you don't need to bother playing it yourself, we could do that too. But I think that rather defeats the purpose.
Well, without giving away too many spoilers, what were you going to say, Matt?
Basically what Sam said, just in a different way.
There you go.
Sure.
Maybe slightly more genteel, but yeah. We're on the same page.
That's fair enough. Are there any scenarios that feature dynamic weather or updates to weather in general? And that's from Bradley.
So there's no updates to the weather in general. The dynamic weather feature is being used in more of the scenarios now. So in some of the recent DLCs, we've used it in one scenario, whereas the team are using it in multiple scenarios in each of the upcoming routes. So you will see dynamic weather more and more now.
So how does that manifest? So for those who don't get
dynamic weather is really more changeable weather. So it's as you play a scenario, maybe it starts off in a light sky, and as the scenario proceeds, it gets heavier and starts snowing or raining or something like that. So the weather will change rather than being static. So that only applies to scenarios. Services are still static. You pick the weather you want, and then that'll be what you get. Whereas in scenarios, the team are using the dynamic weather feature more, having sort of started practicing with it and got some the hang of it in sort of, I think LGV was the first time they really started using it recently. Yeah. They're doing it more and more now, and so they're using it in multiple scenarios in Boston.
Okay. So because we've been talking about adding dynamic weather as something that is more widespread, particularly in timetables, has that moved forward at all, or is that still on the, oh gosh, that's something we'd like to do?
Oh, it's much further forward than it was. We've got a full spec now for what we want to do for dynamic weather in service mode, we'll see when that it gets added to the roadmap. But yeah, no, we put a lot of thought into that.
You said the roadmap. Got some good nods there.
Mm.
Yeah. I've seen a question in the chat, Matt, and before it scrolls away, I'd actually quite like to know if there's an answer to this one. Do you take advice from in real life train drivers when building the game and add-ons? If so, how do I get involved? How does someone get involved in that?
Ping me a message. In fact, there's another person that I owe a response to as well. But we take a lot of advice. We all love talking to train drivers, and not just train drivers. We work on the railways pretty much in any capacity. We've got a guard in the beta forum. We've got several drivers, even drivers who don't drive trains in the game. Yeah, one of them's Dutch, it's all really good insight into the experience of being a driver, not just what does that button do. It's all really useful. So ping me a message on the forums. Send me a message.
Okay, great. Would the stuff we painted in Livery Creator or Livery Designer show up on Boston to Providence route, for example, the wagons? Now, I imagine this should show up any liveries people created, as long as it's the new profiles. Anything that's going from one generation to the other will not be ported over.
Yeah, I mean, you'd have to create the livery in in the new on the PlayStation. Xbox, I think everything comes across. So, but so obviously, if you paint stuff and if you repaint the F40 or the ACS, then it's going to show up. I don't recall whether the wagons, the freight cars, have got all of the substitution stuff enabled on them.
All right.
So I know that we've got an existing issues question coming later on. I'm going to tack that one on the back as an investigate and fix if necessary, because that makes sense. If you painted a bunch of wagons, why wouldn't you see your custom repaints there? It might work. I'll double check it, but that'll be in the future fix if necessary.
Yeah. Let's have a look. Is the improved winter scenery exclusive to the Boston Sprinter? So you touched on the weather slightly there earlier.
Yeah, so as part of the Boston route, so each of the routes for Rush Hour, we've given them a theme just to again vary them out a little bit and give the creative teams a bit more a direction of an area to focus on. And Boston is about improving the winter visuals. Some aspects of that may be common, but I think a lot of the key things that are being done are improvements to things like the sleepers, the way that the track is on the sleepers, so that you don't get. One of the things we found on Boston was you'd be driving along and you'd see this horrible flickering moiring effect with the sleepers, and it was because the snow effect wasn't there in the slightly distant. It was mipping out as you went further on, so you were seeing more of the black or the wooden sleeper rather than it being covered in snow. So that's been fixed and you don't get any of that moire effect, but that's a specific change to that art asset. So, and the same is true. The other major change for winter visuals is the trees. Again, that's a material change that was done on those trees. So again, these become things that we can tack onto Adam's ever-growing list of things to review. Both relatively straightforward changes to make, but obviously that's in and amongst a large number of things to be done by that team. So I think I need to go through the full list of what was involved in the winter. Those are the two of the key ones, and they'll be unique to Boston at the time of launch. Yes.
Oh, what are the other two routes themed around him?
So the Dresden route is more of an autumn theme because it's got quite a lot of trees on the route. Then you've got the summer theme for Brighton. We wanted Brighton to be summer because it's the holiday, journeys to the seaside, it's that sort of thing. It's as well as being a commuter route, it's a big holiday line. So we wanted that one to be the summer route, and we kind of ignored spring because spring kind of doesn't look very interesting compared to the other three seasons. So
yeah. It's been said theoretically winters can look better now because we can choose the months in service mode. Now, does that make a big impact when they select the month, or is it how does it work with regards to the seasons? Is it
so the seasons are variable in how they apply. So it does fade from sort of like the trees don't just all of a sudden become golden.
Yeah.
In autumn, they become gradually golden. So at different months, different times of that month, you'll find that that you can change by choosing a month later, a month earlier. You get trees that are turning gold, and sort of lose it. I think actually the loss of leaves is instant, but it's that kind of thing. So there is some benefit to that. It's not huge, but that certainly the way that the leaves change color from into autumn is definitely variable.
Yeah. And Russian Dodge said, can we make it summer on NEC, or does it have to be snow? There's all of the different season options.
Oh yeah, all
available.
the seasons are available. Yeah, and they all look good. It's just that by picking a particular one, we encourage the team to just make that look extra good, and we'll target the gameplay around that one. It's so it creates a focus. It creates somewhere we can create imagery around that route as well, and it gives it a visual theme as well instead of just looking like all of the other routes.
Yeah.
One point of order: if I'm setting my route to be in January, presumably that's based on the locale of the route, because if I'm Australian, then January is the height of summer.
At the moment, all of our Januaries would be at the height of January in the Western Hemisphere or Northern Hemisphere, because if we were to do an Australian route, that's a significant problem we'd have to look into to make sure that all works correctly. That months work, and I don't.
I'm just flagging that up there in case that becomes something you need to worry about.
Yeah, I think January is our January, not Australian January. So yeah, that is something we will have to worry about at some point because
local January, so local to the route.
Yeah, it's local to the route. Yeah.
Sam, I don't know if you intended that, but the way you said it made it sound like there was an Australian route imminent.
No,
that's not the case. It was just the way it sounded.
It would be lovely. It would be lovely if there was, because it would make the Australians happy.
It would, but just thought it's worth highlighting that.
No, quite
wasn't a hint. No.
It wasn't a hint. There's no conspiracy theory. Are you sure?
I'm just pointing out that there is such a thing as Northern Hemisphere bias.
Yes, there is. Now back to some questions from the forums with regards to the Amtrak. With regards to Amtrak even, why was the choice made not to do the more up-to-date interior in the Am fleets? Was it due to lack of reference images or for another reason? And that's from Antcraft.
In this case, it was purely down to the reference we had was for the older ones. And the choice was taken to just work on what we had. Because there's been a lot of rework. I mean, the ACS was completely gutted and rebuilt. I think sounds across the board have been redone. So the decision was taken to just stick with the WAM fleets that we had. We can, what we might do with the up-to-date ones later, I don't know. But that's the reason it was just a decision was taken to stick with what we had, just to keep control of our scope a bit.
Yep. And then after the release of Boston Sprinter and the big update, will the team still be fully focused on Rush Hour? And that's from Crazy. So that's quite a big question.
Yeah, I mean, there's you've got Boston Sprinter and the big update. A lot of the team are not working on Boston anymore, or the big update. They've already moved on to Dresden, and a good chunk of them are on Brighton. So a very big chunk of them are on Brighton. So there's lots of work going on there. So yeah, I mean, Rush Hour dev work continues for a little while yet. So yeah.
And then I think we talked about it earlier, didn't we, Sam, about like the theme of Rush Hour and how does that still have the potential to be recurring for the rest of our updates this year? Are we going to be sticking to that theme, or are we going to be just doing any old routes?
With the routes that we're making, I mean, Rush Hour influence is more how we make the route rather than anything else. There's still a demand for everybody for a variety of routes. If you're just going to focus on Rush Hour, you wouldn't make freight routes anymore, and that's clearly a bad decision. So we need to keep a variety in terms of the stuff that comes out. But where we make a route, the Rush Hour theme is check all the passengers are up to the right levels and are looking good, and then make sure when we build the timetable we try and deliver that sort of same high level experience. So we're kind of trying to use the lessons of Rush Hour and what we've learned and built so far to be that we step everything up so that as we go forward, we do that going forwards as well. I mean, it may be that, it influences in a small extent what, run route versus another route. But this one actually delivers a really, really good Rush Hour type experience. But I wouldn't want to underplay other things as well, because I think variety is actually important.
Yeah, definitely.
Well, it's more or less the same as we did in the year just gone, where we had a notional kind of lean towards high speed, and that manifested as 3 high-speed routes. So there will be a scattering of more Rush Hour bits and pieces throughout the year, but that's not to the exclusion of other things.
Yeah. And from NTA NYCT fan in the chat. They're asking, after Rush Hour release, will there be future routes with this feature? So I think you sort of answered it a little bit there. But where you have the potential to add these features, you would like to, yes?
Yeah, don't think about it as being a feature. Think about it as just how we build routes going forward. I mean, we'll be using the full passenger system in all routes going forward. And when we look at timetables, where we were always looking to implement as much as possible of the real timetable, we'll now be looking at adding all the AI trains to go along with it as well. That's fundamentally the difference between the two, is adding all the non-drivable trains as well. And it's just really how we build routes now, rather than it being a feature or anything.
Yeah, definitely. And then once we're done with Rush Hour, this is a question from the forums, and is the team looking forward to the time afterwards when the routine returns to normal? Now, what is our normal routine like, Matt?
It's busy. We're always busy.
We're always busy.
It's busier than normal, perhaps because obviously we're making 3 routes in a short time frame, and there are some lessons that we're going to be learning from what we've done here. But the team are always busy, and they're always, by the time you see a route and it comes out and you've got it on your machine, we're maybe 2 routes further on from that already, even during a normal cycle. So there's lots of stuff to get on with. I think the team are looking forward to different variety of stuff again, because obviously I think they're all bored of hearing the phrase rush hour now, because we say it a lot internally. They want to hear some different trains and some so forth. So but otherwise than that, no, it's just business as usual.
Yeah, I mean, with a lot of kind of regular games, you'll find that the development team take a well-earned break immediately after shipping something, and that can end up meaning that if there is something that needs fixing quickly, well, tough, because they're all on holiday. Whereas we stagger the time off that the team gets, and that's every team across the company. We stagger the time off because Train Sim World is not a normal game. I mean, anybody who just looks at the DLC options available will kind of go, flipping it, that's a bit more than normal.
Yeah.
It's because it's a live hobby type experience rather than being a fire and forget game. It is constantly in development.
It is, yeah.
And when we're talking about the fact that it's constantly in development, obviously for the community, the fact that we're releasing 3 simultaneously at the moment, it can feel like quite a lot at once. And one of the questions we've been asked is, has the idea of releasing 3 routes at the same time been a mistake? And would we do it again? Is it a mistake? Is this unusual for us to release routes like this?
It's not unusual. I mean, we did 2 plus Sandpatch last year, and we're doing 3 this year. And well, I guess not a mistake. I think there are lessons to be learned. Some of the approaches we've taken, we're going to be learning a lot of lessons from, in terms of things that have gone well, some of the things that haven't gone well. Sometimes we've stretched ourselves too much and we've not been honest with ourselves that we're doing that. And that's led to some delays and cuts and so forth. There's been some other lessons in terms of how we do estimations in the first place, and making sure that the team have the time to do those estimates and actually validate those estimates somehow, rather than giving it a fairly coarse estimate. So there's lots of things that we will learn from this. It's been an incredibly valuable exercise, and the team have stepped up really, really well. But if we were to do this again, we would need to be doing better than we've done this time, bluntly.
And
to be fair though, Matt, I mean, a lot of the problems that we've had this year stem from this time last year. This time last year, Train Sim World 2 was just about to launch, and at the last minute, we decided that because the community got in touch to say, what do you mean you're not making all of the old routes playable in Train Sim World 2? So after a bit of evaluation, we introduced the Preserved Collection.
Yeah.
And that impacted development for the whole year. The preservation crew notwithstanding, it put us behind schedule from the get-go.
Yeah.
So we've been trying to catch up, and we've done a reasonably good job, but we're not quite there yet.
And Matt, you said that the team have perhaps not been honest with themselves. When you say that, it's not that we're deceiving the community, is it? Or at least we haven't given them incorrect information on purpose.
No. I mean when I ask an engineer, how long will this take? And they will come up with, I pick engineer as a random thing. They'll say how long they think something will take, and sometimes that estimate is how long they want it to take.
Yeah.
And then it's accepted because we would like it to take that long as well. Yeah. And everyone walks away happy that we have an estimate.
And then we tell the community.
In there, exactly. And you get the sum total of that, and then sometimes it doesn't quite work. So, and some of the problem there is because we haven't given that team time enough to sit back and reflect on that and be honest with themselves that actually, no, this is an estimate I can stand by. I need to ask for more time for that feature, and then we need to give them that time to do that feature. This is not about outwardly facing stuff. This is about us as a team internally within Dovetail, just being more open, communicating better, having the time to come up with better data, and then that gives better data to give out to everything. The cuts for Dresden stem from that bit going wrong. Yes. Bluntly, that it's that bit going wrong with the estimates being wrong in the first place, and that's not because the people who came up with the estimates did a bad job. Yeah, and again, I'm not saying that people have done bad jobs. It's everything needs to be improved and challenged, and everyone needs to be clear. And then once we've got a clear plan everyone is happy with, then we can start communicating that. So it's it's a challenge. And when we've been doing sort of more like one route at a time, when things don't quite work, it doesn't have such a big impact. But when you've got 3 routes being in development at the same time, then everything like that gets magnified, and then the stuff that Sam was talking about then puts you on the wrong foot right from the get-go.
Mm-hmm. And then I guess that follows into another question from the forums quite nicely, which is what has been the biggest challenge this year? And that's from Pinguini. Quite like that name.
There have been a number of challenges. One of them has been the development and delivery of these 3 projects in one go. But the team have stood up to that and have done a really good job. Another massive challenge this year is going from a 3-platform game, I think, to a 7-platform game.
Yes.
And that's not trivial. That is absolutely phenomenal challenge. And then trying to migrate everybody's data, dealing with all the first-party platforms for all of those different environments, so that we can keep all the data and DLC ownerships, make sure all the upgrades happen. Even we take all the development challenges out of that, the people involved in all of that aspect, that side of it, the retail side of it, and one of the other producers I work with who looks after that from development side, have had an absolute nightmare of a time. Not because the first party platforms are difficult to work with, but because this is immensely complicated. Yeah. We do things other game developers don't do, and it makes everybody's life hard, even on like Sony's and Microsoft side. So, huge shout out for everybody on all parts to getting to where we are. It's historically we've broken Steam many years ago because we were doing things Steam didn't think people would do as a video game developer, and they've grown as a platform. Again, this is a long time ago now, but still, it's we push the boundaries in a lot of respects, and this release this year has done that in spades. So aside from the development challenges, which we've talked about previously, I'd say that was probably one of the biggest hurdles that everybody's overcome.
A couple of good comments actually from the chat. Sorry, Natalie. Do you want to rewind your
Yeah,
slideshow?
I don't know why that's the thingy's stopped.
You didn't set it to loop.
I thought I had.
You've got to set it to loop. Anyway, Crazy Killer said, is it getting to the point where it's too much of a challenge, and he plans to avoid this going forward? And I think we just took on too much all at once. It's like we moved too many sets of goalposts internally. We'd got relatively comfortable making routes and putting out locos and things, but then adding in so many new platforms all at once, and then everybody all of a sudden working remotely. Everybody could work just fine, but the number of meetings went through the roof.
Yeah.
As the number of synchronization things, because you're not sat next to each other all the time. It was just like you had people desperate to look busy by holding meetings. I'm naming no names, but I'm not a meetings fan, so there you go. So
sorry,
it's more that we were quite happily jogging along, and actually standards were coming up, and then we took on too much. That's the biggest problem, and it's not just took on too much in terms of the number of routes. It's in terms of the amount of logistical nonsense that surrounds it all as well.
It was just and then every dimension.
Yeah, and then a triple J814 says, why not outsource third parties to help with the preservation crew? We do.
Yeah.
That happens. That's already a thing we do.
Yep, indeed. Yeah, there's a growing number of people that are assisting us at various levels. We definitely. I mean, we are growing that slowly. There's some logistical problems with growing it, which we're trying to fix. We've got several people that are helping us now, including names like Ed and Mike and Lucas and so forth, they work tremendously well with the rest of the team. It's all very appreciated.
Mm.
And then Stephen's asking, do you think the pandemic has affected the development? Now, like you touched on that slightly, and I know everybody's probably sick of hearing about the pandemic now, but it must have had some kind of like you said, the meetings alone, but beyond that, has it affected things? Has it made it harder?
Yes and no. I mean, it's very easy to lean on the pandemic as a crutch and say, because of the pandemic, obviously. But that's yes and no. Obviously, we haven't been able to go and get reference, and that's a problem. But we have started finding ways around that problem now, and so we found someone local to Dresden who actually went and got some of the photo reference that we needed for the Dresden. So it's kind of like, again, some of the people that we talked to and finding out how they can help us get the reference. So we've been able to pick some of that stuff up. The team have probably worked better at home, I think. So in some respects, we've benefited at home versus being in the office. I think people have been more comfortable at home. Short answer to that one is yes and no. It's been challenging, but everyone's stepped up.
That's great. Now, are you able to answer a few more technical questions around the next generation consoles? Yep. One of the most asked has been, since our last stream where we said we'd look into whether the Series S is going to have layers or not. Do you have any answers to that at the moment?
I checked in with the QA department and to verify what they'd done in testing. They have been testing Munich Augsburg on the Series S with all DLC and confirm it works fine. So Series S will be shipping using PC layers.
That's really good news. That's quite powerful then for such a small little machine.
Series S is a phenomenal bit of kit.
Small little machine.
It is small. Look, it's tiny compared to the other one that's like a breeze block.
I wouldn't go there. Don't be stoking up fanboy wars based on console footprint.
I'm not at all. I'd be happy with the breeze block. I'm just saying that's what it looks like. And then on the topic of the next generation consoles, this is a very specific question which I'll be surprised if you have the answer to off the top of your head. But how many gigabytes of storage space will the Series XS version require compared to the old generation version?
That's a good question.
It is. It's very specific.
I did some preparation for this question.
Oh, did you?
Yeah. I'll give you some numbers. So Clinchfield, on the original 4.23 version, so this version you've got right now on Xbox, the pack file for that, or the Xbox file for that, is about 4 gigabytes. The Series X version in 426 will be about 4.2, but the Xbox One version shrinks to 2.8 because of the way that the new 426 has a better compression and everything. So you've gone from 4 down to 2.8 on your Xbox One, with the Series X then going up to 4.2. Cathcart starts at 2.3, drops to 1.7, and next gen is then 3.4. Hamburg.
Sorry, Sam. You
this is fascinating. Do continue.
So bored. Keep going. Keep going.
No, they asked.
Keep going.
Hamburg 6.4 goes down to 3.6, and then Series X is 5.6. So it's actually smaller. So it's those kinds of, I only checked those three, but it's those kinds of, you're looking at a shrink generally for your Xbox One and a small increase for Series X.
That was a very detailed answer. Thank you for that. Sam,
I
hope you were paying attention.
So,
what? No, I just don't care. I genuinely, I don't care how much space it uses up. I know that some people do, but I mean, there are more interesting things that we can talk about.
Okay, such as this question actually confused me, so please do clear it up. What exactly did you mean with the patch note for SPG Banking Com? Will it automatically set up helpers?
So I actually asked Adam, and I haven't had a response to that one yet. What I expect that means is that Banking Com will be available as a function, rather. It shouldn't automatically set up. I'm imagining here at this point what it would mean. I haven't had the answer from Adam.
Okay.
So we'll get a proper answer from Adam on that one. But I imagine it, which means that Banking Com has been added and made work properly on those trains.
Mm-hmm. And then Antcraft is asked, and this one's going to be quite a hard one to answer at the moment because obviously we haven't released all three of the rush hour routes. But has the team had a favourite route out of the three routes? And if so, which one was it? Now that's really early days, so you don't have to have a favourite just yet.
Can't answer that till they're all done.
Well, that's what I thought. Yeah. But
I think, I don't think anyone will have a favourite out of the three, other than Joe, who loves the London Brighton line.
Yes.
Joe's doing the timetable for London Brighton, and he's obsessed with it because it's also his local route. So but nobody else has really expressed a favourite. I think they're just enjoying the variety of the three different routes. So no favourite, I think, is the answer to that one.
Okay. Cage, I can't pronounce the end of that name. It's got a number in it. When will we see the first screenshots stream from Dresden? Soon. We don't have a date for that yet, do we?
I think we have a date for that, no?
No.
Really soon.
Really soon. Oh.
Well, in the grand scheme of things, really soon.
That's sooner than soon.
Not very long at all. Soon, I would say.
There was a mention of a dynamic dispatcher back in May when Rush Hour was first announced. Since then, I haven't heard a thing more about it. Is it still a thing? That's from Kobo Kren. Now, Sam, you had an answer for that, didn't you? Or you had an idea?
Well, I did, because it's a really good question, and we talk about the dispatcher a lot. Mm-hmm. And even, I've just me and Matt have chatted about the dispatcher on numerous occasions because I try and understand it, and it's blatantly obvious that I don't understand it because I'm a path signal fan, and therefore I thought, well, look, once Matt's got a little bit more time, then I think a dedicated stream demonstrating how the dispatcher works, what it does, and why it is maybe considerably more difficult to set up a timetable than it might feel like in an abstract sense, would actually be something that was welcome.
And then,
so it's a non-answer, but it's a promise of doing a behind the scenes on the dispatcher.
Yes, yeah. Just when Matt is getting a reasonable amount of sleep and isn't working quite so much.
Yes.
And then Noel was asking, are the AI trains on rush hour routes in front of the player's train programmed in such a way that they may also be late? This was something else that you'd be able to highlight during that stream, isn't it? Yes? No?
So AI trains... No, AI trains will follow a schedule.
There you go.
Isn't that more or less the same question, though? Isn't that the dispatcher again?
It should be, I think.
Not really. Dispatcher controls where trains go. The AI drivers control how they go.
Yeah.
So TS1, they are the same thing, but in TSW we split them out so that they were separate domains. But no, at the moment, an AI train is a fairly predictable thing.
Sorry, go on, carry on.
Adding in variation to AI trains is something that I definitely want to do. It's been something we're talking about for a long time. It becomes incredibly difficult because then essentially the timetable becomes untestable. Because every time you play it, it'll be slightly different, and you therefore don't know if you've tested the thing. Before we can think about that, which is probably not the most complex change in the world to make, varying how a train drives, we need to come up with actually a really, really solid testing plan for how you know you've now got a working timetable.
Is the AI train and the timetable thing what Joe mentioned during his 24-hour timetable dev interview, where he said that it has a start point and an end point, and the trains can't go beyond that end point because the simulation doesn't like it. If they go to midnight 01, it gets confused.
That's slightly different, and that's actually it's more in the territory of a bug. Technically, our timetable system and the dispatcher are supposed to be able to cope with timetables as many days long as you want, but because of various simplifications and shortcomings in what was actually implemented, it ends up in a few places saying is time A after time B. And so let's say, for example, your timetable runs from 3 a.m. to 3 a.m. You'd want 2 a.m. to be after 11 p.m. Yeah, because it's after it in the timetable, but it's not. It's before it because it's a smaller number. So it gets very confused and thinks that the thing it's about to do, it surely has already done. So it gets very confused. And the same is true it's because it doesn't take into account day 0 versus day 1 versus day 2. It just treats the numbers as a strict linear order, so it doesn't work.
Signals.
Back in your box.
Okay.
Sam looks confused. He wasn't the only one.
No. I missed like the first 2 words, and from that point on, I was playing catch up and losing.
I was trying to understand it, but then you lost me a bit when you went into the numbers. Anyway, should we go on to the next question? After the miscommunication over Riesa Dresden, and we have touched on this slightly earlier, but you have an answer for this specific question. After the miscommunication over Riesa Dresden branches and the associated backlash, why was another miscommunication made in announcing rush hour passengers for Bakerloo and Köln-Aachen on the 23rd of July, when we must have known by that point that it wouldn't be possible for release? So you can explain a little bit what happened there, can't you, Matt?
Yeah. That wasn't a miscommunication in the same sense that the Dresden Riesa branches was a miscommunication. In this instance, it has always the plan for those to go in, and there was always there was never been a case that it wouldn't go in until suddenly we realized it had been forgotten, and that's on me. So I should have had my eye on that one. But what happened there was that we didn't put them in at the time we upgraded the routes in rush hour to support the rush hour passengers. We didn't put those upgrades into the routes for the core product, so that when it went out on Epic, they went out in the right format without needing to be retested. And then what happened is that ball then never got picked up again and was then picked up too late. So the plan is definitely to get those in. And that will be done as soon as possible. I know Adam's team has been skilling up on on all of the rush hour improvements and what's involved in those, and he's looking at getting those sorted out.
So it's not a case of now that's been forgotten, it's never going to happen. It is being worked on.
Totally is. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's another string to the bow for the press crew. So that's something else they can go back and add when they do more routes, is they can add the rush hour passenger system. So it's, but they're first in the line. I mean, as far as communication errors are concerned, everyone's unique. There's nothing unusual about any of them. The only thing that is consistent is we want to give you dates. We want to give you reliable information that you can trust in, and therefore we deliver that information when we have it. When there is a high level of confidence that something is going to happen, we give you that information. It's part of trying to be transparent. And sometimes it just turns out that that's incorrect. We went way too early with the announcement of Rush Hour, but we were running Festival of Rail weekend, and some bright spark suggested that it might be a good idea to start building a bit of hype about the summer project that was months and months away. So we put in all the information that we had, and ended up getting bitten. And we wouldn't do it that early ever again. But I mean, for example, take the update pushback that we had today. That was based on the best information that was available yesterday, and it only changed this morning. So we always try and give you the right information. It's just that sometimes that information changes, and we've got the choice of try and keep being transparent, try and keep giving you information, as much information as we can, or keep it all to ourselves until 30 seconds before it goes live. And neither one of those options is the right one in terms of keeping you guys happiest. So there's always going to be an element of the rough with the smooth. And it just turns out that this time around with this particular release, we've hit triple rough patches.
Yeah.
Yep.
And I've seen in the chat that some people are concerned that we've mentioned that obviously the Bakerloo and the SKA stuff is going to get updated. There's been a couple of comments suggesting that's going to happen next year now, because we've said it's going to be in the Preservation Cruise remit. Is that the case? Is this going to be something that's going to be left for months and months and months?
No, it isn't. No, not at all. I want to get, like I said, Adam's team are understanding what's involved in doing it, and some of the tasks are as simple as a few minutes each. It's we're switching the characters to all be in the core, so effectively in one of the files, you just, instead of pointing to a local set of characters, you point it to the new character set in the core, and then you tick a box to say now use the bigger number of characters rather than a little number of characters. Mm-hmm. Now, obviously, as with a lot of these things, it's a 5-minute job becomes a bigger job to then test and make sure it's all okay, which is the reason we didn't do it without planning ahead for it in the first place. No, we want to do it sooner rather than later. But I don't want to give a date to it right now, because I haven't had a confirmation from Adam when they'll get it in there. But they're looking at it right now.
That's great. And then the Lioness has asked us, what lessons have we taken from the reception of the sales, the reviews, the forum feedback, to the new routes, the UI, and other stuff that we've published this year, and how will those lessons inform our choices going forward from Rush Hour? So I imagine it will. You did touch on it slightly earlier, actually, but it does impact the way we work quite a lot, doesn't it?
Oh, we listen to what everyone's saying. A couple of things was, for example, when we did the 465 DLC, there was no new services on Southeastern High Speed, and the absolute very clear message from players was that was not right. That was the wrong way of doing it. So now if we think we might do a loco DLC or something to go with it, we'll leave the hole for it. So that, because if we put the services in, we can't take them out, which it kind of snookers us. So now we will make sure there's holes for potential things so that we can fill that in and give you new services with each of the packs. There's things like the wrong coaches going on to Hamburg-Lübeck. We need to treat that decision differently and review it much more clearly. We're looking at all of our review processes from start to finish about how we make stuff, and some of the estimation stuff I mentioned earlier on, and the planning, but also some of the QA stuff towards the end of the process, the processes the individual developers use when they've made a change, and how they then check that change before they submit it, self-testing their work and so forth. Everything from start to finish, we're going to review it, because we want to make sure that what comes out is a better quality and doesn't have stupid mistakes in it, which some of our stuff has, and we need to fix that. And then the another one is just the having a route, it doesn't matter how amazing a route might be, but if it has no actually new rolling stock in it, that's not a good thing. New rolling stock is as important as new routes and so forth. So it's this has affected. We've already literally scrapped one or two of our route proposals that we've been thinking about because they don't deliver any new trains. They would be reusing existing trains. So that doesn't mean we'll never do them, but it means that there are probably other things that are more interesting, more exciting. So let's prioritize those and look at those first. So we are definitely listening, definitely learning, and trying to improve what we're doing. And it might take us a bit of time to resolve everything, but we're working on it.
And I'm probably going to sound like a broken record now when I say this, but I cannot overstate from a community point of view. Give us your feedback on the forums, in the Discord, on the socials, wherever you prefer, and let us know what you like. Let us know what you don't like. Don't underestimate how valuable your feedback actually is.
Oh, yeah.
We need it. We want it. And it's incredibly helpful. And I realise sometimes it feels like you're talking to the void and you're not being listened to, and there isn't change happening based off of what you're saying. There is. Your feedback helps. It helps us to make change. It helps us to talk to the right people about what's bugging you, and it helps us to continue doing what you actually like as well. So please keep giving us the feedback because we want it. Now, back to the core, and this is from Kobo Kren again. It's a general question regarding the core update. Will it be possible to search for a route by country? I really like how each route in the current PlayStation 4 version has a flag designating which country the route is based on. Is that something that is currently available with the new core update? No.
No, it isn't. No, it's done purely based on the licenses, the operators. So we've added one filter, which is based on the operators. Just as this suggestion has come in, send us your suggestions about how else you would like to filter them. So it may be that in the future we put a country filter in, but it's not there right now. We don't have a plan to put it in. But as with all things, send us your thoughts.
And I mean, the other thing to keep in mind is that you haven't tried it yet.
Yeah.
And change is always awkward. When you get used to using things in one way, you get familiar with using it, and you kind of go, well, why have you changed it? We changed it because we think it's better, and we hope you do too. And if you don't, then we'll probably change it back later. But you've got to experience it first.
Yeah. Try these things out. Let us know what you think. I must admit, I'm quite liking it. When it was initially proposed, I thought, I like the country filter because I want to drive German trains. But actually, most operators are fairly unique to it. And actually, if I want to drive a German passenger train, I can just select DB and boom, I've got German passenger train. So I must admit, I've grown to really like the filters. So try it. The country filter does cause problem for cross boundaries, but that's a solvable problem. But let's see how you get on with it. And let us have your feedback rather than just making lots of snap changes, and then we can absorb that feedback and see if we come up with something different for next time round if we need to.
Yeah. And we have quite a heated question now from Stewjoy, which is, are there any known issues with the 4.26 upgrade, the new UI, or the Boston Sprinter DLC that you can tell us about now so we don't get alarmed when finding them out? Things that you already know aren't going to be quite right for a release or are likely to be fixed quite soon. Now that's quite a tough question.
Well, really.
you should know about most of it already, because I think we've seen Matt, haven't you got some catenary?
Oh yes.
Shall we show it actually while we're talking?
While we're on the topic.
So I want to stress that what you're about to see in these images that Brandon has sent over is not what is there from day one. Yeah, this is the catenary that is being worked on, is not submitted even into Perforce yet. Which is our repository for the game where we build it. But this is off of Brandon's local computer. It's a really good insight as to where things are at, and you can see, the progress that Brandon's making. But yeah, just bear in mind, this is not what you're getting from day one. you've seen what you're getting from day one in the various streams, and we'll see again on Thursday.
And while everybody's looking at these images, can you explain why the catenary has changed?
Yeah, so the team frankly made a wrong decision. They were catenary is which is if you don't know what catenary is, it's all of the poles, posts, and the wires that deal with the electrical overhead wire cabling that powers the trains, and it's unique to various territories. So the catenary that you see in Northeast Corridor is not the same as the stuff you see on the West Coast Main Line in the UK and in Germany. But it's also not even the same on different bits of the Northeast Corridor. So what happened is that the team took our existing Northeast Corridor catenary and applied it to the new Northeast Corridor route. Except that what's actually happened in reality is that it's all been redone in reality. It's a more modern style of catenary now. Yeah. And it looks cleaner and nicer than the older style stuff. And actually, it changes the feel of the route if the wrong catenary is there. It just doesn't feel the same, doesn't feel right. And that was quite an important thing. And Brandon was one of the first ones to flag it up when he first got access to it. You know, I talked to the team and we took the decision that we would like to fix it. And actually, Brandon, who is a route builder, he actually laid the track for this route in the first place, said he would be happy to learn the tools and do it. So we built the catenary assets. Our team made all of the catenary assets, and then Brandon's been busy placing them in the route all over. And he's not finished. It'll be a little while before he's finished because there's a lot. Catenary is a huge job. Yeah. But as you can see from these screenshots, he's done an absolutely stellar job. And I think from memory, he's got Boston down to something like Route 128 overhauled now. So and the Boston bit, obviously, including Southampton Yard, was the really, really, you know, the Larry bit. There's the very complicated bit. So this is it's relatively straight run now down to Providence. It's just lots to do.
So this is just highlighting that it is very much a work in progress, and he's making some good progress.
He's making amazing progress. He's making quite rapid progress. And yes, CJ King says, thanks for what you do, Brandon. Totally going to echo that as well. Brandon is an absolutely brilliant person. He's very talented at what he does. So we're very lucky to have him helping us. So yes, it's really good, and it's going to make the route feel, and it already makes the route feel so much better. You'll see some of Brandon's work already in the shipping version around the Ruggles area. There was a small section that he was able to finish in time for release. So you can see some of this stuff in the release version. And then once this is becoming available, we'll let you know, and we'll reintroduce it to you in an upgrade stream or something.
What are we looking at for completion there, Matt? Are we talking weeks, months, years?
Weeks.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, he's well over halfway, and he's done the hard bit.
Oh, that's
so it's, like I said, it's a relatively straight run now down to Providence. It's just tedium of doing the same thing over and over and again until he gets to Providence now. So at the rate he's going, which is quite an impressive rate, actually, it's a small number of weeks for him to finish off this. And then it'll be testing, and we want to wrap in some of the known stuff, which I'll go over in a minute, that we've come up against and I've mentioned in previous streams. And then we'll look and see if there's any other urgent stuff that comes up once the product goes out, and try and wrap that in as well. But we don't want to leave it too long before this update goes out, because it's a really nice update. So we can get that out for you. But we'll keep you in the loop of what's going on. Brandon's not a DTG employee, Strike Eagle. Brandon is what we call a second-party developer, which means that he is someone who works outside of DTG but working on DTG projects.
I'm going to bring the faces back now. Welcome back, faces. Oh, way to look happy, Sam.
I thought I'd deliver.
Yeah, thanks.
So in terms of other parts of that question, there's a number of things that have come up on service mode that I've mentioned. Amtrak Train 137 is currently flagged not drivable because of an issue with where it parks itself, which is an AO flaw. Now, the engine team actually have made a fix for that. So we need to prove that fix works, and then we can untick that one or retick that one to be drivable again. So it's still there. It will still drive as an AI train. It's just not player drivable. The Amtrak depot services are currently not drivable because of a confusion with how or selectable from the menu, I should say. They are drivable. If you spawn to the right place, get on the train, it will let you drive, give you objectives and so forth, but they're not in the menu. We know what that is. We have a fix for that in testing at the minute. PIS is not working correctly for some stops where you'll see that like it gives you no destination on them. Again, that's in progress. The gantries, are in progress, and I've made that note from earlier on about double checking that all of the wagons and the freight cars and the locos that have been placed as scenic freight vehicles around the route, make sure they've all got their substitutable flag ticked, so that if you have made your own repaints of those vehicles, then they will they'll pop up as be available there as well. So that's kind of the highlights really of what's immediately in progress. And we'll keep you updated.
So, I mean, the thing to bear in mind is that, there are always going to be shortcomings when we release anything at all. Time pressure or not, you can't beat having a few thousand people play the game in a variety of weird and wonderful ways. I will break the game every time I play it, just because I play it differently to how it's expected.
If I want to see if a train flies in the air, I give it to Sam.
Yeah, and I don't know how I do it. I just do, and so your feedback's going to dictate what we address. But everything that we know so far is that aside from a couple of cosmetic issues, there's nothing particularly awry.
And then from Lamplight, they'd like to know if Rush Hour is going to ship with a manual, or will it have just a quick start guide? And with the Boston Sprinter reintroducing new safety systems, it'd be great to have proper documentation on it. Is that something we're going to be providing? If the answer is no, that's okay.
I'm not in line with what the publishing team are planning on the manual front.
You had the answer to this, Nat.
I did.
This is you. This is your department.
The answer is no. We're not. And we know it's something that the community want, and we understand that there is a request for written manuals because it's how some of you like to learn. But you might have seen that last week we introduced a community section on the forums where we're encouraging you to post your own guides, your own video tutorials, your own experiences while you're playing. Because often, at least this is how I learn when I'm learning to play a new game, first thing I'll do is I'll go onto YouTube and I'll have a look at how other people play the game to see how they do it. So we are recommending that if you think you're good at creating tutorials, you make some of your own, you put them in the tips and tricks sections of the forum, and we will try and highlight some of the more useful or the more in-depth guides that the community have created. There are some truly outstanding written manuals from the community. It is actually incredible. Some of the detail you've gone into, it's brilliant. And this isn't just a way of us going, you guys do it now, it's your responsibility. We're not going to stop creating video tutorials. We're going to look into trying to create more written ones because we know there's that desire for it. But this is just a way to sort of give you more information on top of all of that, and perhaps at a speedier rate as well. And you guys always know more than we do anyway. Yes, Sam, you put your hand up.
Thanks, Nat. I've got some data.
Ooh, is
I've
this
got
to do
data.
with the survey?
It is. So in the survey that we put out earlier this month, we specifically asked about how people want to learn, or how they best learn how to do stuff in the game, because we know that the in-game tutorial is okay to get you started. It gives you the bare bones, but it can't replace a full in-depth. What exactly? Well, we asked our panel, which of these following options is the way you prefer to learn? And unsurprisingly, in first place is an in-game tutorial mode.
Okay.
That's the one that people most want, is a full in-game tutorial. And as Matt will now nod his head, It's also the one that is the most complicated to make. It's far more difficult than anything else. Second one would be in-game procedure checklists. So having a clipboard in-game that says, do this, do that, do this, do that, do this, you're good to go.
Oh, that'd be good.
Also good. That's the second most popular choice in the survey. The third would be full written manuals that are displayed online. That's the third most popular. Followed by interactive cab tooltips. You remember that one, Matt? This is Matt's idea. It's a fabulous idea where you can look around the cab and the tooltips will pop out over the top of them, giving a full instruction, maybe a video, something like that. Lovely. Science fiction. It's never going to happen, but it's a lovely idea. Well, maybe it will happen. Who knows? Then you've got video guides on YouTube, followed by video guides in game, and then printed manuals, proper old school printed manuals, and then finally live streamed training sessions is the least popular suggestion.
You guys don't enjoy Matt's presentations.
Not as a way of learning. I think as a way of building depth of knowledge. Certainly it's useful. But firstly, not everybody wants to spend 3 hours with another of Matt's infamous PowerPoint presentations before they get underway.
How disappointing.
No disrespect to Matthew.
I think you do a wonderful presentation, Matt.
Thank you.
And don't suppose you have any other data you're able to share tonight as we're on the topic of surveys?
I can do one more, and I'm not going to give you the full kind of data set for it, but one question that we ask every time is with regard to new features we might look at in the future, or this tends to be stuff we think about, and that we think, how interested are they in that? And the one option that we didn't include in the survey this time around, because we don't need to, is multiplayer. Because multiplayer is always number one on the list. It also does very strongly for people who actively press the do not want button. There is a very strong part of the audience who says, give me multiplayer. And then there is a small but incredibly passionate audience that says, do not want. And so the two usually balance each other out. But I've done 5, 6 of these kind of biannual kind of surveys, and the result is always the same. Multiplayer is always number one, and then there is always an enthusiastic audience who say no, thank you. I'm just trying to find the right question. I've been filling a little bit while scrolling.
Is that what do you want?
It's not gone well.
Do you want us to answer something else while you're looking?
I must be almost there. It's in here somewhere. There we go. Right.
No,
so the kind of things we asked about are like random events and weather, so that you can disrupt timetable service mode with something a little out of the ordinary. And we've discussed before that if we were to do random events, they wouldn't be game over, because that's not fun. If you're 45 minutes into a run and you hit a game over event, that's not going to leave you any more engaged with what's going on. It's just going to make it worse. Anyway, that came out top, but the one that got the most top-rated results, so that's top on average. Random events top on average. The most top-rated votes were additional player roles. Almost 20% of people who responded say that they'd love to do it properly as a guard or a conductor or someone who works on the station, or as a passenger, or any number of different ways of playing, but in a fully featured kind of a way. The likes of sound and graphics, they came in next. Just general improvements to the way it looks and sounds came in next. Down at the bottom end, the stuff that people don't care about is improved rewards in mastery.
Okay.
We need to have a look at mastery. And cross-platform cloud saves. I mean, it's a bit obscure maybe, but that one wasn't popular either. Yeah. But then right at the bottom of the list, down the bottom of the list, is something that Matt really wants.
No, you're breaking my heart.
What does Matt want? Matt, what do you want?
VR.
He wants a magic science helmet.
I want my magic science helmet.
Really? That's at the bottom?
Yeah.
I'd have thought everybody'd want that. Is it because of the motion sickness?
It's because there are a few people that are very loud that want it, and I'm one of them. And there are not a majority of people that want it.
How fascinating.
The reason it's at the bottom is because the first qualifying factor to wanting VR is I already own a VR helmet. If you own a VR helmet, chances are you're going to want more VR titles. If you don't own a VR helmet, chances are you couldn't care less. So it is a reinforcing or a self-reinforcing kind of vote. Now, this doesn't mean to say that VR is not something we want to do. Matt's hugely enthusiastic, and so is Mr. Paul Jackson, the chairman of the board. Is also very enthusiastic for a bit of VR. So it's highly likely VR is going to appear. But in terms of voting, the people who want VR tend to be the people who own VR.
Sam, that sounded very much like a promise.
What? Yeah. Oh, sure. Yeah. At some point in the next 20 years, I guarantee you,
in the next
we
20
will have
years.
considered doing VR.
I'd love to try it on VR. I'm not going to lie, but yeah, that's really interesting.
It's amazing. Just saying.
Well, thank you.
We know, Matt. We know.
And then, while we're still on the topic,
I'm not paying 600 quid for a hat.
No, you shouldn't pay 600 quid for a hat. Pay 300 quid for a hat.
Hard pass.
now, kids. Anyway, now we've covered some of the survey. Obviously, there's still more that was covered on that, but that's not going to be something you're going to go through in detail on this stream, is it? Are you going to give some more answers at a later date?
I'll probably drop stuff in, and the reason for here and there I will drop in bits of information, and it's purely because this is what we in the trade call proprietary customer research.
Way to make it sound fun.
Those who are maybe interested in, I wonder if we can find out some details about what train simulation players like. Well, if we were to publish our proprietary customer research, other people would immediately have that information, and it's not something we care to share. But I will drop nuggets of information in from time to time because you'll find it interesting.
Okay. Now, the last section of the stream, shall we say, is going to be focused on a lot of questions around passengers. We've still got a lot of questions, so hopefully we should be able to answer these. So, this is from Cageras, I think. What does upgraded passenger systems on Bakerloo Line and Colnachen mean? So, what are they going to have with the core update, and what are they going to get once we include that other passenger update that didn't make it to this cut?
So, the core update is just the animation of the stair climbing animation.
Yep.
So then that's in for all routes, because it was a core change inside the game. Then the stuff that needs specifically setting on each route is temperature curves so the winter clothing works properly. The boarding and alighting curves, which will help make sure that you get more of a flow of passengers around the route. The original set of curves we were using weren't ideal. We've got a new set of curves we're using now, which makes the route is more likely passengers will get on and off, rather than previously they would sort of stand there dumbly looking at the train. Another thing is to switch over them to use the new character system. So that you get the new types of characters, the ones that can be palletized, patternized, and the new 3D models. Switch up the new volumes so that you get the new quantities of characters. A lot of these changes are relatively straightforward to do. Perhaps one of the more complex, involved changes that the team have to do is we've reviewed how the way that the passenger system works. We deploy certain assets onto the platform, sort of where characters will spawn and where they'll stand and so forth. And we worked out that we weren't doing that in the best way we could do. And so there'll be a case of just shifting those volumes around a little bit on the platforms so that things look better there. And that's got to be something that's done across the route. The most of the changes are done in 1 or 2 files in one single place per route, so it's relatively straightforward. So that's the stuff that will then come later on, and that's what that would then be the full update to the new characters.
And what it's asked in a different question, but will these updates to passengers then be will they be given to the preserved collection that we've got, and will these changes be applied to future routes?
So they'll be on all future routes, definitely.
Yep.
In terms of what happens in the preserved collection, it's on Adam's. Adam's got a list that he manages of the various features and which routes have and have not got those features. And one of the things he does is review, as he looks at a route, what's going to get added to that one. So this will be on the list for him to consider when he's going through a particular route. So fortunately, like I said, it's a relatively easy thing to consider because it's not a hugely involved task. So I'm expecting
we ought to get Adam to list out his tool set.
Yes.
On the next, let's do it on the next roadmap stream. Let's get Adam to go through here are the standard bits and pieces that I can now add without it being a huge mission to do so.
Yeah, absolutely. Definitely we should do that.
And then obviously, we've mentioned the increased density that comes as part of the passenger update. And Tube fans asked, is the 200 passenger number 200 total, or 200 different models at once that can appear more than once? And obviously that 200 number, that is the absolute maximum that can appear on PC, right?
200 is PC and next gen console or current gen consoles. It's the Series X, Series S, PlayStation 5, PC are all running at the 200 number. The prior consoles be running at 100. That number refers to the number of people walking around. In a worst case scenario, assuming the random number generator has an originality failure, then that would be 200 of the same person. Yes, and then there is a separate random number generator which then ensures to try and prevent that from happening. But it would be 200, and that's on the platform. That doesn't count the fact that there might be 500 people sitting on the train. So this is just, and the expensive characters, the ones that are resource heavy to think about, are the ones that are walking around on the platform or standing on the platform. They're active characters that are going to get on and off trains. So that's your 200 number.
Okay. And will all routes get the unload all instruction, or is it just the rush hour routes that'll get the empty depot trains?
Well, we'll be using it going forwards on all routes because it's a tool we now have to use, and there's no reason we wouldn't use it. For those that don't know what that means, the unload all instruction is when a train gets to its last stop, everyone needs to get off, and then it will go off to its depot, so that you don't get passenger trains filled with passengers sitting in sidings. So that is working with Boston, so yeah, future routes will be using it now as standard, and it becomes another tool that Adam's got now that as he's reviewing timetables, he can work out how that fits with the routes he's doing. Again, it's relatively straightforward because most stations already end in an unload, and it's just changing a couple of instructions on those unloads to make them into unload alls. But it's not free. It has to be thought about, planned in, done and tested. So it becomes something else that can be considered as part of that task. So I'm not going to make any promises to where it'll go, but it's to be considered.
Yeah.
Does the update itself upweight the number of passengers that you see in other non-updated routes, or are the limits still 40 and 100?
So we have a specific flag that keeps the old routes at the old numbers,
right?
Because we upload increase the route from say 20, from 100 to 200 is the issue, because you already know that everything copes with 100 because that's what PC is at. But from 100 to 200, you need to then just have a quick look at the routes and make sure that there aren't any problems, which means all the passengers are now throwing each other onto the track, or because there's not enough room, or there's navigation problems which you couldn't see before. So we'll look at a route, we'll tick the box that says go up to the higher numbers, and then we'll look at run the route and say, okay, everything's fine. We just want to make sure that rather than being a global setting and then not knowing whether everything is now misbehaving, because right. I know that we don't like it, and we've had specific feedback, very, very specific feedback from drivers that passengers on track, bad, completely breaking experience that stops you playing the game.
Yes.
So it's, we want to be very careful when we create a situation that might result in something like that without looking at it. So that's why we opted for making this an opt-in feature that we would do on each route and then check it.
That makes sense. And then from Simpman, do passengers still teleport to and from their seats on the train? And from the same person, is there any audio added for passengers?
So do passengers still teleport to and from the seats? Yes. So they will climb onto the train into the vestibule or something, and then they'll disappear, and then they'll appear in their seat. And is there any audio for passengers? No more so than there has been previously. So they'll hear them footsteps as they're walking around. There's general crowd chatter. We've tried to increase the ambient crowd chatter. Mm-hmm. That's linked in with the. So we've got a spawn density curve on the passengers. What that says is that at rush hour times of day, it will generate more passengers, so you get a more full station, and at midnight it will be generating very few passengers, so that you get a quieter station. And the audio for the crowd ambient noise is keyed into that as well, so that the chitter chatter that's going on in the background is all based on that. So again, you should find that at rush hour, hubbub, that's the word, is it artful? Okay. The hubbub is louder and more prevalent at rush hour and quieter, or not even existent in certain times of day. But that's functionality that's always been there. But one of the things I said we've adjusted the curves to make it more clear. We found that, for example, when we looked at the curves, that the height of rush hour was for an instant. It was a graph that went up and then came down again, whereas now it's spread out over a period of time, which means it's the effect wasn't as visible previously because of that, whereas now it's much more visible.
So that is the majority of the questions from the forums, and we've been streaming now for like a good hour and a bit, and we've covered quite a lot. Is there anything else you wanted to touch on, Sam, by any chance?
Well, I was just going to say you have studiously ignored all the questions about Riesa Dresden and Brighton Main Line.
Why is that?
Come on, I'll let you answer.
Yeah, sure. It's because we're not ready to talk about it yet. We would love to answer questions about Dresden tonight. We'd love to answer questions about Brighton. But if we did, we'd end up in a similar situation that we've explained, where we'd be giving you the information as we have it now. And that information is currently very, very subject to change. And we can't go answering all your questions now and giving you all this lovely information to just break your hearts again when we go, actually, we've changed that.
Nothing's really going to change.
No.
It's more a case of, let's get this one out first, and then we'll talk about the next one. And then when we finish talking about the next one, we'll talk about the one after that. Mm-hmm. They are coming up pretty quickly, after all.
Yeah, they are. Some people are worried that it's going to be like months before they get to hear about any of the future routes. That's not going to be the case at all. They are coming up quickly, as you said earlier, very soon. And is there anything else you'd like to touch on? Or are we good? Matt? No?
All good with me, yeah.
Good with you? Excellent. Well, thanks for joining us, everyone. Oh, actually, Nigel asked, when will the pre-order go live? There is no pre-order. There is no pre-order. You'll be able to purchase on Thursday, no earlier. So, yeah. Thanks to everybody for joining us. Tomorrow we have a stream where we're showing off some of the preserved collection, I believe. Oh, Matt's put his headphones on. Lovely. I don't have a hood. Fine. And then on Thursday we will be showing Boston during the launch stream, and we'll be we have a thread up where we've asked if there's anything you'd like us to show off, so please do go and put any requests in there, and I hope everybody has a great rest of the night. It's really off wings, they're all calling you Emperor Palpatine now, and it's really fitting. So
it's the yin and yang of your co-hosts.
It really is. It's so hard to concentrate with you guys like that. So anyway, have a great night, everybody, and we'll see you tomorrow.
Thanks very much, everyone.
Bye.
Take care.